Got a pretty cool video for you today, so we're going to take a closer look at the custom Clodbuster chassis I make. So this is the complete truck right here. I recently did a video where I was running this thing around my backyard. Right here are 3 complete kits. I had more, but a few local guys came and bought some. So there's really only one available, even though there's 3 right here. This one is the first one ever made, this kit right here. And that's going out to somebody who's been following along this build for a long time. So he gets the first one. It's been spoken for a while. And then there's 2 left. One's already spoken for. I got somebody coming tomorrow to pick one up, another local guy. So there'll be 1 available. I didn't expect to sell as many as these this fast, but I'll be making more. So I'll give you a quick overview. So this is the battery box right here, which is that. And you can see these pieces are for mounting the electronics. So you can, even if you want to run brushless, there's enough room to run 2 ESCs. Uses factory steering. And I built it so the battery box sits as low as possible. If you take a look right in here at the steering, under full compression, it just barely clears. So I made sure I made my measurements as precise as possible. So these pieces right here are the shock mounts, there and there. And then they're connected by this front support, which you got one right here and one right here. And there's a front and a rear shock tower support. I'll show you the difference. So if you look, this one right here has mounting locations, and that's for a front bumper. So you can see right there, that's where the front bumper will go, and the back one doesn't have one. But I'm actually not going to be including the attachment to adapt the front bumper, just because I want to try and keep the cost down on this thing without sacrificing quality. And this is a pretty expensive chassis for me to build. Let me show you. This battery box, it starts off as a piece of aluminum like this. It's a pretty good sized piece of aluminum. A lot of little details too, so if you look at this front piece right here that connects it to, you don't see a line in the front. That's because I made it so it's recessed right here. So that way the seam is on the side right there instead of in the front, so that way when you look at it, you don't see lines right there, so it's just all one piece. A lot of little details. And I made a lot of different pieces of these before I settled on the final version. I'll show you some of the pieces that I made at first. So here are some of the first ones I made that I changed a little bit. A lot of people look at these and think they're all identical. A lot of them can't even spot the difference between that and that, but I'll show you. So if you take a look at these right here, you look at these corners, they're really sharp. These ones are radiused. These ones are radiused a little bit less. Just making little changes like that. And then on these side plates, very minor change, just like radiuses in here. And if you see, this edge is flat right here, but on the final version, right here, they're kind of a little, there's a little curvature to them. And then as far as this lower cradle goes, they're all pretty much identical. Minor differences like wall thickness right there. Just little changes like that. But I didn't want to put this out until it's exactly how I wanted it. So that's why I took my time and made it exactly how I wanted it. So I'll get the stuff out of the way and I'll assemble one of these chassis. Just show you how it goes together. So before I start assembly, I'll show you the hardware. So I use high quality stainless steel hardware. This isn't stuff that like what you're going to find at a hardware store. It took me a while to research this, but it's stainless steel, but it's a high grade stainless. So that's basically all the hardware. And these are 1032 machine screws. And that's good size. The reason why I use that is anyone who knows the small hardware that comes on like the arms and stuff always like to strip out right there or break. So I use 1032, and the nice thing about this size is you can also find these at a hardware store. They're not going to be as high grade as this, but if you ever needed to make changes or do something, or you lost one or you broke it or something, you can always find one. So that's pretty cool. I like using stuff that's common to find and also very strong for the application. So the first thing I'll assemble is the shock towers. Remember I was saying when I showed you the chassis, these get recessed into there like that, so you don't see a seam in the front, it's only at the side. So I'll just leave that loose for now. Install this side. And I leave this a little bit loose like that, because I like to set this thing down right there, make sure everything's nice and flat, and then tighten it down. So that's one piece. Now let's do the same for the other side. And see, that's the front. I was showing you it's got these little mounting ears for a front bumper support. It would just be a flat piece in a bumper. And like I said, I'm not going to include that in the kit just to keep costs down. And because I know a lot of people aren't going to run a factory body. But you can if you want, because that's what these holes right here are for. And this is pretty light. If you look, this is all milled out right here. Same thing on the back side. So see, this is the rear one. It's the same thing. It just doesn't have the mounting ears for the bumper. And you can see that's all milled out right there to save weight. Same thing, just set this down. Keep everything nice and flat. Probably not necessary, but it's just what I like to do. I do that pretty much anything I work on. Okay, so now there's the front and rear. So the next thing I'll do is assemble the lower cradle. And if you take a look, this is pretty cool. So I made so many changes to this thing. Everything like a little small chamfer here, a slightly bigger one right here, thinner wall thickness right here. So this is stock wheelbase, but I'll be offering one with an extended wheelbase. And this also uses a stock steering. So if you look at those 3 bolt holes, those always go to the rear of the truck. So I'm going to grab some stock components from the Clodbuster just to show you how those bolt up. So these are stock parts that come with the Clodbuster kit when you buy one new. But one thing worth mentioning, these steel plates came on the newer ones. Like the older original Clods didn't have these steel plates. So you just take this piece and you see those 2 holes right here. You just make sure that those stay open because that's where the steering mount goes. Not that many people are going to run the stock steering. I just wanted to make it so that if you had a stock Clodbuster, you can just get this chassis and it'll bolt right up. Everything lines up perfectly. So that just goes right in there like that. And these pieces, they just go right back there. I made it so it's a nice clearance there. So it's everything's very close, but it fits perfectly. I actually kind of like these. They made these to make the plastic chassis stronger, but it does make it easier to assemble having these pieces instead of all little pieces of hardware. I probably should have put that in first. So that's that. Get that out of the way for a second. Next is the side plate. So one cool thing about these, if you look, there's some holes right there. And for a stock Clod, those are unused, but in case you want to do a 4-link design, that's another option. You got some adjustments. And I raised it up a little bit right here. Added a little bit of wall thickness so that way you don't have to worry about the holes getting opened up if you leave the bolt loose or something loosens up. But it's all flat on the backside. And even though this is one piece, it's still very light because this part is really thin. I just left it like this in case you want to put like stickers or something. I just thought it looked better than being open. Also could help keep dust and dirt out. So now I'll put the side plate on. And that's simple. It's just 2 screws right there. And there's only 2 sizes of hardware, the shorter one and the longer one, so it's really easy to figure out how to put these together. So these I'll leave loose for now. I'm just gonna snug them a little bit. Just so there's a little bit of play in there. And left and right are the same. So now I'll pop this one in. Just like the other side, leave that a little loose. The reason I made this like this 2 pieces, because eventually I make different cradles and stuff, but also if somebody wanted to modify this themselves, they could. You could easily just take a piece of metal or whatever and bend it and bolt it in. So it's really easy to modify. So the next thing I'll do is put the battery box in, and also one of these. So remember what I said earlier. This goes towards the rear of the truck, the servo mount, if you're running a stock one. If you're not running it, doesn't really matter. So I'll say this is the rear of the truck. The front has bumper mounts on it. So this is where we use the longer hardware. And these are stainless nylock nuts. There's nylon insert. You just don't want to over tighten these because the threads could gall and then you won't get them off. So now instead of putting a bolt and a nut right here, this little standoff on the battery box is threaded. Do the same on the other side. Same thing, I just start these loose. So you see that's loose right there still. So now I'll just take the rear one. Really, you could do this in any order in which you please. As long as you get the thing together, that's all that matters. It's pretty simple and straightforward. That just goes right there. Now, one other thing I do, if you look with just a slight amount of play, I set this down like this, just to keep everything nice and flat and level. And still just do a light snug, just don't crank this thing down yet. So now everything's nice and snug. I just like to press down just to make sure everything's nice and flat. And then I tighten these more. And now for the top ones, you need a wrench on the back side. Just a regular 3/8 wrench. Just go through and tighten all those. Okay, so there's the completed chassis. And if you look right here, there's a little more material because I added weight where I thought it needed it to handle better for the way I drive anyway. And I removed a lot of material, like you can see in there. Everything's all nice and rounded off. Took out a lot of weight, but added it where it needed to be. So this is a real stable handling chassis, but still allows the stock components should you want to. So I'll pop the factory body mounts on right here, and I'll show you what it looks like with the body on. So these are the factory body mounts that come with their Clodbuster, Super Clodbuster. The only thing is, it mounts just like the stock one, but if you use the stock screw, it's a little too short. It'll still bolt up, but there's not going to be a lot of thread engagement. And I've yet to find a supplier of these that can give me a large quantity of them. So you can find a screw that's in the factory chassis that'll work. So it's really easy. Just put them on like factory. The longer ones go in the front, shorter ones go in the back. There you go, that's an assembled Clodbuster chassis. Pretty pleased with how it came out. So what I was saying earlier when I changed the design, so it's not just a flat edge right here, it's got a little curvature. I actually like this design better until I assembled it. Once I assembled it, it just didn't look right, I needed a little more, so that's why I added a little material. I changed a few radiuses. So now I'll just pop the body on and we'll check it out. Looks pretty cool with the body on it. Little fun fact, so this Super Clodbuster body came off my favorite Clodbuster in my collection, which is a Super Clodbuster I bought a long time ago before I started collecting Clodbusters. It was when I got back into RC, and I was shocked to see that they still made the Clodbuster after all those years. So that was cool. So that got me back into the Clodbusters, back into RC. So it's really cool to go from a kid obsessed with Clodbusters to now making chassis for them. And I've said this before, and a lot of people think I'm joking, but I would not be where I'm at today if it wasn't for the Clodbuster, because when I was a kid, I worked so hard to raise the money to buy my first Clodbuster, and then when the box showed up and it was all in pieces, I kind of freaked out a little bit at first, but I knew if somebody else could put that thing together, I could too, so I just took my time, I put it together, and that taught me all about being mechanically inclined, and also, like, if you want something bad enough, all you gotta do is work hard and put your mind to it and give it 100%, and you'll get what you want. So for me, the Clodbuster is more than just a toy. I actually never consider it a toy. It's something bigger than that to me. So anyway, so that's what it looks like with the body on. There it is. Take a closer look. And like I said before, I'll be making different lower cradles with different wheelbase and also different shock towers to have longer shocks. So that's why I went with like a modular design. So if you buy a chassis kit and you want to change something down the road, you don't have to buy a whole complete new chassis. You could just upgrade it as you go. So anyway, that's it for now. I'll have more kits coming. I really didn't expect to sell as many as I did this fast. So take care. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. See you next time. Hit the bell. Bye.